Okay. How many people? Don't you work?
I can try, yes.
I can hear you now.
Hi,
Hello.
we're going to start here in just a moment.
Okay. Okay. Away from my phone because the computer doesn't want to work. Why my computer?
Yeah. I think
Hello. I have to do it from my phone because my computer doesn't want to work. Some reason.
problem.
Lunch meeting.
All right, PJ, feel like we're ready to go? Okay. Do we have anybody in the waiting room we need to deal with? Did. Looks good. Okay.
Me.
Folks in the room, you feel okay to start? Okay to start? Okay. Say that again.
Can you send that link?
I sent it to you. You know,
I'm sorry.
just not a nice person. And that was on the mic. Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's getting better. It's
Hello.
getting better. The response.
Hello.
I think
I'm
think
trying
it's
to
fair to
mute
say
mine if I
that
can figure out how to mute it. I'm sorry for the background noise.
that's okay. That's all right. No worries. We're just glad you're here.
Me too.
I think it's fair to say that this might be one of the most extraordinary moments to have a meeting that we'll ever have.
Yes.
And I want to make sure to not just tell the committee, but tell anyone who's watching that's anywhere in the path of Hurricane Milton that I hope you will be safe, that I hope your family will be safe. I hope your property will escape damage. And I hope that we will all be okay in the face of this incredible situation, this incredible circumstance. I'm also aware that today is an important day for a lot of people around the world, and I'm not going to dwell on events outside of Pulse, but today is a day that for many is somber and being observed in different ways, even downstairs outside of our lobby here. So just noting that this is an important day for other reasons. We are a smaller group today, which is not a surprise given, as I said, some of the circumstances. I'm looking at committee members Connolly, Rivera, Rodriguez, Rosado here with me in the room. We have committee member Burt, committee member Dawson, committee member Alvear, committee member Jimenez, all joining us on Zoom. So that's a total of 8 members, and we're a committee of about 18. Since we're a little bit of a different kind of committee, we don't operate under typical Robert's Rules of Order. We can still have our conversations, even though we have fewer than half of our members. But obviously, in order to be inclusive, I think it's important for us to make sure that whatever kinds of decisions, so to speak, that we may make be preliminary so that people who had to miss today's meeting will have a chance to weigh in on them when they are next able to. Later in the meeting, I will share with you some input we were able to receive from some of those absent committee members so that at least we can have it as part of our discussion. So we'll be as productive as we can be with this subset of this group. So I mentioned I'm joined today, as I was at my last meeting, by my colleague Rafael Montalvo, who is both
Sorry. I got
That's okay.
my computer now. Let me just turn it off in my phone.
So Rafael is a professional facilitator like myself, based in DeLand, has been affiliated with the Florida Consensus Center, just the Florida Consensus Center. And he'll be assisting me as another facilitator today. You met him in August when he was assisting with some Spanish language facilitation. He'll be facilitating in English today. What I want to do first of all is have PJ bring up our slide deck just so we can orient ourselves on our plan for the day. And before I forget, thanks to my facilitator whisperer, in the interest of public safety, we will not meet tomorrow. This will be our only meeting for the moment, will be today. So there will be no meeting tomorrow, only today. We will take public comment later in the night, presumably around 7:30, but we will update that time as needed, just in the interest of having a good discussion. But again, we will not meet tomorrow because of the circumstances with the storm. We always start our meeting with remembrance, and I would ask for just a brief moment of silence as we remember the 49 who were taken from us. Thank you. I occasionally have trouble with advancing slides, so I'm trying to make sure that don't know if I have power to this device. So let me go back one slide if I can. Here are what we're planning to cover this evening. We have two guests from City of Orlando staff, and they're going to walk you through the details of our site. There will be some things that you will learn tonight that I think will be new in terms of the possibilities of the site, as well as, of course, some limitations. And then after that, in our question and answer, we're going to walk through different elements for the memorial that you all have discussed at one time or another, and try to determine where we have consensus about what elements we want to see included. And again, because some people couldn't be here, we gave them an online version of that discussion that they could fill out, and we got 8 responses. So we'll have more than just our voices here in the room to talk about it. I just want to be clear that we're not going to be taking any votes. It's not about 8-4 or 9-6 vote. We really want to get to a place where we develop a vision for this memorial that everyone feels they can support. So that's the idea behind a consensus process. We could go to the next slide. These are our same discussion agreements that we have been using all throughout. These are meant to apply to all of our meeting, including public comment. We want folks to be open-minded, accepting, curious, in search of discovery. And then on the next slide, being sincere and also make space for everybody to be able to participate. So that will take us to some updates, and I'm going to be reading from some material shared with me to ensure that both you all and the public have this information, so bear with me. But we're trying to capture answers to a number of different questions that have been raised over the course of the process. And so I'll start with a question, and we can, PJ, we can either put the updates there or we can go off the slides for now. So there has been discussion of whether there was any active litigation against the city of Orlando related to the Pulse site, and the law department legal has reviewed, and there is not, repeat, not any active litigation against the city related to Pulse. Any lawsuits that would have been filed against the previous property owners would not impact the city's ownership of the site and would not impact your work to help develop a memorial on the site. So there may be some lawsuit having nothing to do with the city, but the city is not party to any, and it will not affect the work you're doing on the memorial. In 2023, I'm going to shift gears to an investigation of Pulse. In 2023, a police report was filed regarding the Pulse building and any potential violations at the time of the tragedy in 2016. There have been numerous investigations conducted since then, to include the lead investigation by the FBI. On receiving these complaints, the Orlando Police Department conducted its own thorough investigation and a comprehensive review of all evidence presented by the complainants. And since our last meeting, OPD, the Orlando Police Department, has announced they have completed this investigation and released the following statement, and I'm quoting: "As a result of the evidence obtained, which is provided in detail in the investigative report, probable cause does not exist to charge the Pomas with Florida statute number 782.07-3, involuntary manslaughter by culpable negligence, and this investigation should be considered closed. In part, the investigation concludes, quote, the Pomas could not have reasonably foreseen or anticipated a terrorist incident taking place at Pulse. Even if every alleged violation of building and fire codes at Pulse were provable beyond a reasonable doubt, and even if it could be proven some of the victims killed at Pulse by Mateen would have survived if it were not for the alleged building and code violations, the wrongdoing of Mateen is legally an independent intervening act which supersedes any possible criminal liability the Pomas could have had for any of the deaths." So that last portion is directly quoting from the police. It's not my words, it's the police department. So they have concluded that investigation and consider it closed. The entirety of the investigation is, of course, something that can be reviewed at a different time if people are interested. There have been questions about the budget, and so I want to provide some context. My understanding is that the amount of $7.5 million will be allocated from the city's general revenue funds for both the design and the construction of the permanent Pulse Memorial. The goal would be for those dollars to be offset with philanthropic dollars, but in the event there are not any dollars raised, this is an amount the city can fund and ensure the completion of a meaningful memorial in a timely manner. So the takeaway is that we have a budget to work with of something like $7.5 million. It may come directly from the city's general funds that are paid from taxes. It may come from offsetting philanthropic support. It would not be raised by, anyone would be expected to contribute, but there may be some pursuit of philanthropic dollars to offset, but that money is meant to be set aside regardless for use on the memorial. We're going to talk about this next piece a little bit more in a moment, but there is that additional parcel of land that's next to the main Pulse site. A local businessman purchased that property adjacent to Pulse with the intention of the property being a part of the permanent memorial. That property can be considered as part of the design. So that's significant. The size that we thought we had of property to work with was fairly small right at the corner. And you'll learn tonight from our staff that there will be more acreage, more land, more square footage to work with, including that site. We've got a couple of questions about maintenance and so on. And the city has not finalized which department would be responsible for the ongoing operations or maintenance of of the site. An operations and maintenance funding plan will be developed before the permanent memorial process proceeds. So the city will certainly be responsible for that plan and for that work, but it has not finalized which department would take ownership of it. The city requests that designs be developed that use materials that have lower maintenance and upkeep costs, obviously. So that's something we will be talking about as we go. Several other questions were specifically related to the site, and we're going to have both a video and other visuals here in a little bit to allow the committee to better understand the site and how it can be designed and considered as a memorial. I think it's important to say that given previous conversations about the sensitivity of the wall near the bathrooms and perhaps other parts of the site, I should just say this video and these images may be difficult to see, difficult to watch. So you're welcome, of course, to step out. We do, I believe, have our mental health professionals here. So if for some reason that would be something you would like, and that I believe speak English and Spanish, is that right? So they are available to you. But for those joining us on Zoom, please know that we will certainly not pass judgment if you feel the need to step away during that part. One last thing in terms of updates. At our next meeting, so the meeting hopefully in November, to help further bring these elements and your ideas into a concept, the city is going to engage with an artistic design professional who will be providing their services to this committee to help get to a final conceptual design for the memorial. And they will be here in person at the next meeting. Those professionals will be providing the work pro bono at no cost and will not be able to bid on the design or construction of the memorial. So I just want to make that clear. We will be engaging with an artistic design professional here at our meeting. That professional is doing this as a public service, and they will not be eligible to bid on either the design or the construction of the memorial. They just wanted to offer support to this process. So I know that was a lot. I hope that it will help us continue to move forward in this process. And I hope that we will have satisfactorily addressed some of the concerns and questions that had been raised. We're doing some handouts around the table, so I'll just take a moment as that happens. But here in just a in just a moment, in just a minute or so, we're going to be welcoming up Doug Metzger and Richard Forbes. Doug and Richard work for the city of Orlando, and they are here as professionals to help you understand some of the nuances of the Pulse Memorial site. They're going to have their own both video and regular picture presentation on the screen to walk us through. And so whenever they feel ready, I think we are ready for them. And I want to thank them, obviously, deeply for all of the work you've done to get us to this point.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Doug Metzger. I'm a chief planner with the planning division of the city of Orlando. I manage our community planning studio, which is our urban design studio. And we focus on helping homeowners, business owners, developers, city departments, both design and help improve the designs of their projects. We review everything across the city from sign permits to high rises. And then I'm also with Richard Forbes.
Yes, I'm Richard Forbes. I am working in the community planning studio as the review official. I'm an architect. For many years before that, I was also the historic preservation officer, which is also in the community planning studio. The appearance review is very important in the city because we have a lot of regulations that control what we want to see buildings look like, and this is no exception in this area. So with that, we'll take it away.
So we're actually part of the Pulse Memorial Technical Advisory Committee, which is a set of staff members from different departments, different divisions. We specialize in planning, designing, constructing, and maintaining city projects and as well as private projects. But we're here to help. Some of the folks are here tonight. There'll be more here later.
Doug, I apologize. Could I ask you to, I think someone's coming to maybe help with the mic, but.
Am I still not, am I not quite there yet?
To the mic. Get into it.
Okay.
Thank you. There you go. Yeah.
All right. I'll try not to be so soft voice. So tonight we're going to use some maps, some graphics, some photographs, some videos to provide you with an overall view of the memorial properties. Like many occupations, planners and designers have our own vocabulary, our own language, a set of tools that we work with. We've tried to simplify things for this presentation, and when we get done, if you do have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them for you. So we're going to start with, come on, may need some help here, PJ. There we go. Whoops, went too far. There we go. Starting with a map. So as you can see from the map, on the north, we have Cayley Avenue. On the east side, Orange Avenue. To the south, Esther Avenue. The square with the blue dotted dash line is the Pulse property boundary. And then, as we've discussed, we now have what we're going to refer to in our discussions as the Esther property, which is the property directly adjacent.
Right. So we've got the Pulse property site, which is 110 feet along Orange Avenue and 140.5 feet along Esther. And when you add that in with the Esther property is quite deep because it runs between both Cayley and Esther, and it's 100 feet wide. It makes a little jog, but it's 274.5 feet deep. So that leaves us with almost an acre when you add this into the existing Pulse property.
So now we're going to transition from what was a map to an aerial photograph. Again, kind of the same orientation, Cayley Avenue on the north, Orange Avenue on the east, Esther on the south. But now we can start to see some of the things that are happening around the memorial site. We have the OUC substation to the west of the Esther property. Not pretty, something that we're going to want to screen. We have the window tinting place on the corner of Cayley and Orange. Again, another area that we're probably going to want to buffer from. You can, hard to tell from.
Doug, just since we have some folks that are out of state, can you just OUC, can you?
OUC, Orlando Utilities Commission, sorry. They're our local power and water company who are probably very busy right now doing storm prep too, and we'll be restoring our power sometime on Thursday.
Right. And that's a major electrical substation that you see there. That's what all the equipment is there.
So we've kind of got the characteristic of what's going on around the site. And now we're going to drill in a little bit deeper to the site. Come on. PJ. It's been one of those days. PJ's had one of those days. So good. No. Okay. Let's see, this is where we were. So next slide. There's a little blow up. Go ahead and go to the next slide. we're getting a little closer into the site. And so we've transitioned from an aerial photograph now to a graphic site plan, a little bit easier to see. We can keep the trees out. Esther property, Pulse property. I'm going to talk about Pulse property. Go ahead and hit me with the next slide. So the Pulse property. Okay, I'm going to do this so I can do both. There we go. So the Pulse property is about 15,249 square feet, or about 0.35 acres. It's zoned ACN/T/SP, which is one of our kind of planning things. So ACN stands for Neighborhood Activity Center. E stands for Traditional City Overlay, which is a design layer that we have in our zoning, which the traditional city is the city limits of Orlando at the end of World War II. Special design careers for that. The SP stands for Special Plan, and this particular site is in the SODO Special Plan. So there are also some design criteria in the SODO Special Plan that will help us and that we'll also have to look at along the way. So our proposed use is a memorial. Per code, a memorial is a public benefit use, or a PBU. We have a couple different classifications of those. This would qualify as a community public benefit use, or community PBU. Community PBU is required to get an approval from the municipal planning board through what we refer to as a conditional use permit. And that is a approval process that we use for unique projects that allow us, from a staff standpoint and from developers or from a memorial standpoint, the ability to do unique sites and create unique conditions to help make those sites successful, or to help blend those sites into a cohesive group of conditions. So the CUP has to get approved by the municipal planning board, and then goes for approval at city council. They approve it by approving the minutes of the municipal planning board, unless someone pulls it off the consent agenda. Building setbacks right now, our front building setback can be 0. Our side setback is 0 or 3 feet. Maximum side setback is 25. Street side minimum is 0, and street side maximum is based on the block face. But one of the things I want to be able to point out is, as you look at the Pulse building, the northern boundary of the building is actually on the property line. And the east boundary, or the west boundary of the building is actually on the property line of the Esther property. But since we've combined that into the memorial, that's not an issue. But we do have kind of an issue on our side.
And Doug, I just want to make sure that I'm tracking the dimensions that you're talking about with setbacks and so forth. Those are for the hopeful change that you're trying to get to in terms of a zoning category.
Those are building setbacks. Really,
it has nothing to do with the zoning.
It does have to do with the zoning. It primarily applies to the structures, but again, we're talking about a memorial.
Right.
We will probably have some structures. I'm not sure we're going to have something at 0 feet on Orange Avenue. We don't know yet, but we can go as close as 0 feet. Go ahead, Tommy.
Are these measuring only the Pulse corner, not including the Esther property? It's just the Pulse.
Yeah. That's just, this one's just a Pulse.
Because we have another set of numbers for that other one.
Yeah, this is just for the Pulse. We have something called impervious surface ratio. So an impervious surface is a surface that water will not percolate through. And then pervious is, of course, something that water will percolate through. So we're allowed on this particular site per code that 75% of the can be impervious, or paved. It means 25% of the site needs to be reserved for landscaping. We'll also need to consider stormwater somewhere along the way as well. And then from a height standpoint, per code, in the ACN, we're allowed 35 feet, but with the conditional use permit, we can go up to 75 feet. So maximum height here on this site is 75 feet.
Right. And for the Esther property, the zoning changes at this line. The Esther property is zoned O2 TSP. and it comprises 0.63 acres. So with the 0.63 and the 0.35, you get just shy of an acre between the two. Again, this shares those two what we call overlays of the traditional city, which is the T, and the special plan, the SODO special plan, which is the SP. It's very similar. It's a little bit different zoning because it's called O2, and that's an office residential zoning. We can still do the same thing on it with the memorial. That's not an issue. It does go through the same process as the other piece of property. So it's going to be combined into one. So, you know, whatever we put on both pieces of property would go through that conditional use permit. A little bit different building setbacks. Now these are for the strict O2, as were the ACN. The SODO special plan has a few little tweaks that change the setbacks a little bit, potentially in our favor. So we'll have to look at that as well. The maximum building height here is 75 feet. And of course, that's the same as the height limit with the CUP on the other piece of property. That's the zoning for the Esther property.
PJ, there we go. We go back and we look at the Pulse site. The Pulse building, according to the Orange County property appraisers, is a 2-story concrete block building. That's really not accurate. It's a 1-story building. It just happens to have a section in the middle that's 24 feet tall. That taller section was installed. It is the override area for the stage and the dance floor lighting and sound system. So it's just a higher ceiling in that area. The property appraisers rarely go inside the building. They just saw 24 feet. So they assume 2 stories based on 24 feet, but it is a 1-story concrete block building. The area that you see noted as a deck area is a simple roof over the top of an outdoor bar area. The real building is that darker shape with the heavier thick line. That is actually the concrete block structure. You can see on the south side where the waterfall feature was. And then also, you know, we've always maintained where the sign is located on the site as well. This is depicting the walls and everything from the current temporary memorial that's on site.
And I did want to point out that this fence, which is what surrounds the western portion of the temporary memorial, the gravel area and the walls, that's actually, you can see pretty far onto the Esther property. So the Esther property has a 1-story concrete block building, which has about 4,000 square feet. It was built in 1982. It's been reused up until fairly recently as medical offices. It's got a total of 24 parking spaces on it. It's entered off of Cayley. It's got some fairly nice trees around the parking lot. Again, those trees in the parking lot were also added in about 1982. And then when you get to the farthest south portion of the lot, you've got just a green grassed area, kind of like more of a passive area. And the qualities of the site change dramatically when you get back in this portion of it. It gets very quiet. It's much more, you don't hear nearly the sounds that you do from the other areas.
And I think one of the things that becomes important about being able to add the Esther property is it gives us an entrance off of Cayley, which gives you an approach to the Pulse site that could be a passive approach as opposed to having to walk into the Pulse site on Orange Avenue or having to walk up Esther. So again, the ability to create that ambiance through the Esther property and into the Pulse site as we start to think about the design of a memorial. Right. Yeah. So this is just a simplified version of the site plan that we've created. When we get further down the road and we start talking about design and site layout and where we want to put things, you can see where the parking lot layout is, where the building footprints are, and then still have a blank site to work across. And then we've done the same thing with the Pulse site. Ooh, different buttons. You know, you can see created the building, we simplified this one a little bit. We took out the temporary memorial walls to give you a little better view of of what's going on. And then again, for future, as we get in planning, here's a simplified version of the site plan. Gives us some basic line work and something to work with where we can know what the existing conditions are underneath, but know that we don't have to exactly pay attention to those conditions during the design. And that is the last graphics we have. DJ, we're going to switch over now to the 360-degree photos. And we've got a series of locations through both the Pulse Memorial site and the Esther site where, great photography to give us a sense of that on the ground. So, DJ, okay, great. Yeah.
So
this is site number two. Site number two. Go ahead.
This is the north east corner of the site. And these are 360-degree images. So going forward, when we want to look at something, you can say, can you turn back around this way or turn forward or continue on? So this is looking south along Orange Avenue. The tent building is to the right, and then the Pulse sign is right there in the middle, and then we're looking, like I said, south along Orange Avenue.
Right. And then shot 4, PJ. So now we're over just past the Pulse sign, as you can see over here on the right. Being able to look into the Pulse site, Orange Avenue behind us. There's Esther over there coming in on the left-hand side of the screen, and the temporary memorial walls. And then shot 8.
Right. Shot 8 is taken along Esther. You can see that green area that's back on the Esther property. And then you can look into the Pulse site here, and there's the fence that's existing today. And of course, that fence is, as we said, a bit off of the property.
Shot 11. So now we're back in the southwest corner of the property. That is the wall for the substation on the left. And then we can see the Esther property all the way up to Kaylee, the white fence, and then the Pulse property over on the right in this nice green existing passive area that's out there today.
So we're moving on to shot 14, please. So shot 14 is taken near the entry to the existing parking lot of the medical building. That's there. You can see Kaylee is to the right. And this again is potentially, a major entry onto the property. Now we're moving.
Now we're going to go to shot 9. And go ahead and twirl this around here, PJ. This is really interesting. So we're at the corner of the Esther and Pulse properties. So you get a little bit of view behind. You get a sense of the space across the parking lot back towards Esther as we swing around to the one-story building on the Esther site. And then the next shot is 19.
Right, and now 19 starts to take us in behind the temporary memorial walls. This is the old entry area along with the waterfall feature.
And then 18, please. 18 has us at the southwest corner, so you can kind of see the waterfall feature on the right. And then here's the western wall, the Pulse, where the restrooms were located. And then shot 24.
And then shot 24 is around on the other side, the north side of the building, showing the old covered bar area, and then looking down along the north side of the building. And this is where the property, where the fence is a bit over the north property line onto the neighboring property to the north.
All right.
All right, so next we have a video tour of the properties, and PJ did this for us and has actually calibrated the sound so that when you're seeing the video images, you're going to be hearing the natural sounds of the site. So keep that in mind. It'll be very obvious to you, I think, as you move along through the site, the way you hear things and the way you experience it changes quite a bit. So I'll just let PJ run that video now.
Technology is a wonderful thing. While PJ is working on that, I'm going to we brought 2 exhibits that we could have of the site that we could keep up all the time so that we wouldn't have to constantly refer back. So pop those up on these easels.
I wonder if we could just use this time to see
Yeah.
if committee members have anything they wanted to ask or reflect after what Doug and Richard shared. Comments or questions?
I was I was visiting the area. I met with Doug and Richard, and I think it's wonderful the backside. I mean the Esther property.
Mhm.
The clinic is wonderful to create the. I mean, we can add more stuff, more things. We can add the museum on put it on the clinic. We can add inside there a small chapel. Many ideas that many families has been said that we can keep the building because the backside, as they say, is more quiet, is more peaceful, and the only thing they need to do is to turn down the fence on the backside. That the vision that both properties.
Don't want to ignore I don't want to ignore our committee members on Zoom also. If you have either questions or thoughts after what you've heard so far from Richard and Doug, you certainly can share those also. And we're just waiting for a kind of a sound and video tour around the site. Okay.
All right.
PJ, if you can hold for 1 second, Senora Jimenez wanted to share.
Sí, buenas tardes a todos, espero que estén bien. Realmente mi posición sobre la edificación, yo preferiría que se tirara, o sea, que se demoliera, se hiciera un memorial sin la edificación. Esa es mi opinión. Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you for sharing that. And we will return to the topic of the building's future in a few minutes. So I appreciate you giving us that perspective now. PJ, I'm sorry if you're ready.
Working for a second.
PJ, to put you under a little less pressure, would it help if we just formally took a short break? Okay, sure.
Yeah, really sorry for the delay, but the sound on this is very important. It really gives you a nice character of what happens across the site.
Sure.
I do have a question regarding the zoning terms.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you have Pulse as an ACN, you said, and then the S properties at O2. When they combine, are they still keeping their separate zoning terms, or do they combine into like an ACN O2?
There are options. We can probably, with the conditional use permit, keep them both, keep the zoning the same. Or we have the ability to change that zoning from O2 and ACN to P, which could be public, which represents a public ownership. It would be rezoning. It would be another mechanism along with the conditional use permit. So it would be another approval method, but they can go concurrently together at the same time.
Okay.
We haven't quite gotten that far down the road to determine how we wanted to zone the property in the final configuration, but
Thank you.
Right, and whether they continue to have different zonings, you can still have a project that goes across both areas.
I think PJ signaled that a break would be helpful. And so let's come back at 5:15. Folks want a restroom break, refreshment. We'll come back at 5:15 here Eastern time. Thanks. We will resume here at our Pulse Memorial Advisory Committee meeting, and I wanted to mention before we go back to the tour of the site that because we didn't meet in September, we had yet to make the minutes from our August meeting official. So I've sent the folks who are with us on Zoom the copy of the minutes electronically, and everybody who's here in person has a copy of them on paper. You really just have to skim them and let us know if you see any errors in terms of, accuracy or something. But that was, of course, our public listening session, primarily for family members. So there wasn't as much action that was taken. So at some point in the next little while, we'll just check and see whether we need to make any corrections to those August minutes. But for now, I think Richard and Doug and PJ have things ready to go for us to be able to hear and see the site in some greater detail. So we'll start that now.
Thank you. And I just wanted to mention that the traffic noise that you hear was simply traffic noise. The construction that you saw all around there, we asked them and they very kindly stopped all construction activities while we did these recordings. So that's just the noise from the passing traffic.
We've gotten a couple of comments that folks had trouble on Zoom with the audio, so we'll do our best to get that straightened out and play it another time. And PJ can send it to you electronically, so we apologize for those who missed out on that. But committee members, before Doug and Richard, is there anything more that you wanted to present to this group?
That we're open for questions.
Okay. And again, thanks to the two of you for the kind of the static posters here so that we can be referencing this during the entirety of our conversation. Can you just, I know that I'm not the person that should be asking the questions, but can you just remind me how much additional square footage is gained now that the Esther property is a part of the conversation?
With the Esther property is an additional 0.65 acres. And with the 0.35 of Pulse, or 0.63, sorry, we're just shy of a full acre. Whereas the Pulse site was just 1/3 of an acre. So the Esther site represents an additional 2/3 of an acre. So it's 2 times what we had before.
And you may have said this already, but if you look at the Esther property, what I'll call the north half where the building is situated, where the parking spaces are situated, how much is that in relation to the, what I'll call the southern half that goes from like where the word spaces is down?
Right. So if you look at where the site jogs, the Esther property jogs over, the top half and the bottom half are the exact same size. So they're both 100 feet wide, both the top piece and the bottom piece. It just jogs.
I see.
So the two are pretty much equal. The piece on Kaylee and the piece on Esther is about the same.
Got it. Committee members, including our folks on Zoom, what else would you like to ask our experts about the property as they've shared? Go ahead, Tommy.
You're with the Esther property, you guys refer to the parking lot a lot. When walking through, at least I was told that don't look at how everything already is. Everything is modifiable. So like if we choose to change parking lot sizes or areas of it, that's doable, correct?
Everything is up on the table for change.
Including the building,
Yes.
which was designed as medical office. So it's broken up inside into small examining rooms and those things. But again, it has everything plumbing, electrical that you'd want to have in whatever building or whatever adaptive reuse you would use for that building.
Any of our committee members on Zoom want to ask anything else or share anything else before we?
I was gonna suggest just going around and giving everyone an opportunity to speak or pass.
No, speaker pass, yeah.
Yeah.
Reverend, is there anything that you wanted to share after hearing the presentation? Okay. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, I just would like to hear the people is on Zoom or people is outside that they give you know, the suggestions, because I see it's a big addition. The clinic is wonderful. We got many parking spots added. It's a lot of things we can suggest to do for the I mean, we can add also a monument or create something, more ideas, turn down part of the building or put a fountain, and it's a lot of things we can do, even with the landscaping.
So the
Put
next,
different kind of trees and plants.
the next part of the discussion, I think we'll begin to explore that. Before we get to that, did you have any questions or comments on? Okay,
No.
thanks.
Mr.
Nancy?
Rosado, committee member Rosado.
I pass.
Tommy said a lot of good questions already. Anything more? We have, I think, 6 now on Zoom. Committee members Jimenez, Burt, Dawson, Alvear, Santiago, Leon, and Garcia. Any other questions about the site that you wanted to ask of our staff members?
Araceli,
I have no
una pregunta?
Oh, Felicia, go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead, Felicia.
Sorry, I just said I didn't have any questions.
Oh, you didn't have any. Okay. Well, thank you for telling us. All right. Well, obviously, our staff, I believe, will be with us for the remainder of the evening, and we'll appreciate that. We really, I mean, as I told them privately before we got here, what you all did to assist this committee was really, above and beyond the call of duty. So thank you, gentlemen, and the team that works behind you. And thanks to PJ and his group for the video presentation, which again, we'll make sure everyone gets if they couldn't hear during the session. Okay. The next thing that I want to do is return us back to the PowerPoint slides to orient us in terms of our next part of this discussion. I'll just say for everybody's benefit, we're planning to go for about an hour and then take a short dinner break since we just took a break. So I hope folks will, if they need nourishment, we have it behind us, but we plan to take a dinner break at 6:30, if that's okay. So PJ, whenever you're ready to go back to the original slide deck, that'll help us get organized. Perfect. Thank you. So this just lists the work that we have done so far as a review. And the last place that we got was compiling our questions about the Pulse property. But I think it's important to remember that you all did a lot of excellent work thinking about the mission of the memorial. This is a word cloud that just represents the words that popped up most repeatedly, most prominently in those sticky notes that you filled out at our July meeting at the Kia Center. And I made some notes that are listed here that I shared, I think, in August as well. This is really just a refresher on what you think this memorial's mission should be. You can see them on the screen. They include it being a tranquil place for healing and reflection and contemplation, remembering the 49 whose lives were taken in a culturally and linguistically sensitive way, and recognizing our identities from multiple backgrounds and sexual orientations, giving people visitors a sense on the impact of Pulse, messages of love, hope, and acceptance, a theme of resilience and moving forward through adversity, and a voice for those affected, and honoring and celebrating the lives that were brutally taken on that day. So we'll keep that in the forefront of our mind. So what we're going to do in a minute, we're going to first talk about the Pulse building for a moment. But when we get to the different elements that you all have suggested, these are the questions that I want you to consider. Is the element important to you to have it be part of the memorial? And if so, what makes it important? Do you have any concerns about including that element in the memorial? And if you have concerns, is there an alternative that you would propose? So we have quite a number of elements that you all have brought up, and I want to do our very best to get through them. It doesn't have to all happen tonight. That's a lot of pressure, and I know folks' minds may be thinking about what needs to happen to prepare for the storm. But I'd like to get through as many as we can to determine whether we can move forward with a list to then work with our professional in November on trying to put the different pieces together. So I'm going to return to these questions in just a minute. But I want to talk for a moment about the Pulse building itself. And there are obviously probably more options to consider than are listed here, but these were three that certainly came to the fore as we've been doing this work. One, of course, is for it to be kept preserved in its entirety. One is for it to be moved. One is for a portion of it to be retained. And so what I'm going to do here is ask if PJ wouldn't mind if I share screen and then project what I'm going to share on the big screen, because we circulated these questions ahead of time to the committee. And since we had committee members who could not be here tonight, we do have some responses from committee members who are here, thanks to Martino and Nancy and others. But I wanted to go through the answers that were shared by folks who either weren't here or who filled this out in advance. So the first response was to demolish the building, keep the Pulse sign, that's the sign on orange, and the bathroom rescue wall. Allow the families and survivors a last walkthrough before demolition. One person said, Brian Reagan said, keep the sign. Nancy said, demolish the building, but preserve one or more elements of the original pulse. Specifically move the large sign outside of the building to the interior, but keep it tall enough to be seen from the street. Marcelino, demolish the building without preserving any elements. Brett Regas, I would see the dance floor preserved, maybe not in its entirety, but at least part of it. Perhaps we could cover it with plexiglass or something similar to keep people from stepping on it directly. I also think the sign and waterfall are key features. Perhaps we could also create an line of the building with facts about each room and the people involved presented in a tactful and respectful way. Terrence Hunter, demolish the building, but preserve one or more elements. And he indicated he had some other thoughts to share. Jamie Reed said, we need to mute Myra here if we can get some feedback. Demolish, Jamie says demolish. Could we try to mute Myra's microphone? There we go. Thanks. Jamie says demolish, keep the sign and the waterfall if possible and integrate those into the memorial. And then Kelly Dawson said demolish the building, but preserve one or more elements of the original pulse. So let me do this first. Tommy, I don't think I had your.
Mine was the top one.
We were all trying to figure out whose email address that was. Do you normally use that email address?
On the phone, it's like Google accounts. I'm like, I have AOL, but I have Google.
It's a lovely account, but I just had never seen it before. Thank you, Glee Lover 87. Cesar, since I don't have your thoughts yet, let me start with you. The question is, what would you like the future of the building, the Pulse building, to be?
I think, in my opinion, it should be demolished. The building, just keep the front wall where the fountain was the crystal, or so many people is because the situation on many of the survivors or people that was there, they want to keep the last minute, the last wall, the back side of the wall. Some others, they want to keep the front door. Some others, they want to keep the dance floor. Is everyone has a different opinion, but it is important to arrange an agreement to keep something of the building.
Okay.
I mean, I think keep the floor is important because it's where the blood, everybody's blood was there the last minutes and some parts of the building.
Thank you very much. Yeah, excuse me. Thank you very much. Let me go to our committee members who are on Zoom. I'll start with, I'm just looking at the sequence on my screen, no particular order, but committee member Burt, Felicia, if you can hear us, what would you like the future of the Pulse building to be?
I tried several times to fill out my survey and I get to one spot and it would get hung up on me. So that's why mine didn't get submitted. But
no,
I
that's all right.
I demolished the building without preserving any elements.
Very good. Yeah, we can close the share. Thank you, Felicia. I'll go to Myra next, committee member Alvear. Your thoughts on the future of the building?
I have mixed feelings, obviously. I think it is important to conserve the building for reasons that what happened there, and people tend to visit the Pulse site to see the building as well, what happened there. So I believe that it needs to be preserved.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious, given the number of folks who have suggested demolition, if there is a part of the building that would be really especially important for you to see preserved.
For me,
yes.
The building in there entirely. It is important to preserve. If there were, obviously the majority decision I would support, but it's just what I feel. And I think the sites where they escape, the waterfalls, the entrance to the building. Uh, uh, um, I just would like the building to be preserved, not demolished, because then what people are gonna see in the future, what happened there, so. If we don't get to have
as I
it,
say,
if
I
we don't
really
get to have a
appreciate-
museum, so at least we have a building there that would represent what happened at Pulse.
I understand. I thank you for that. And Senora Jimenez, I think, has a comment unmuted. Go ahead.
Sí, sí, ya lo tengo abierto. Sí, yo sigo insistiendo de que se debe demoler porque es muy doloroso, al menos para nosotras las madres. Yo para mí, ver ese edificio, siempre desde que fui la primera vez, me impactó demasiado y realmente yo creo que debe ser demolido. Y creo que la mayoría creemos porque nos causa mucho dolor. Hay que ponerse en el lugar de nosotras las madres. Al menos yo estuve en Alemania el mes pasado y fui y visité varios monumentos, incluso el de los judíos, que hay, y eso, o sea, ahí no hay que dejar un edificio, una edificación para que se vea lo que pasó ahí, porque por eso se va a hacer un memorial, que también me disculpan, no sé por qué mencionan mucho monumento. Yo creo que con poca cosa, como lo que yo vi en Alemania incluso, se hace un memorial y se tiene ahí ese lugar para recordar con respeto, algo que sea bonito y con respeto sin tener ese edificio, porque realmente es muy doloroso. Esa es mi opinión y respeto la de los demás, pero es muy doloroso para nosotros amados. Gracias.
Thank you. And I'm just very grateful both of you have shared so honestly about what you feel about the building. Let me turn to Committee Member Santiago Leon if she's willing, and then I'll go to Committee Member Dawson, Committee Member Garcia. But your thoughts on the future of the building? You're actually muted. I can't hear you yet. That's okay.
Okay. Hi. Hello. Good evening. I have not answered, and I'm sorry because I'm still thinking about it. My thoughts are to, based upon everybody's feedback and whatnot, but to keep the, I'd like to keep them or see that the building has it exists and it's not demolished. If it does need to be demolished, at least portions of it to be maintained, to be part of to be there. Additionally, nobody should go in there. That it would be just something. I know that was one of the options, but I don't know if you can hear me. Or...
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, thanks for that honest feedback.
That's
Let me turn to Committee Member Dawson, and I'll turn to Committee Member Garcia. Committee Member Dawson, if you can hear us.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I did answer that it should be demolished and certain portions of it be preserved. But I on another hand agree with others about kind of maintaining, possibly if we could at least maintain the footprint or, show it on the ground. Maybe, the building is gone, but the footprint of the building is marked in some way. Then other parts of it, like they said, the dance floor, the waterfall, you know, the sign obviously would be something, maybe even one of the large circular window, some of the brushed metal features on the fascia could be, I don't know if anybody like relates to that, but it kind of you know, stood out to me when I was looking at the building.
Maybe I misheard you. What was the last word or term that you used?
There's a brushed metal fascia. It stands out when you look at the
Fascia.
building, you look up to the building. Yeah. And I don't know if that stands out to anyone, but it did to me a little bit looking at it. And any other, you know, like a window or opening or anything on the inside, like maybe an image or a wall that I don't know the inside of the building very much at all, I guess, besides what people have said about the dance floor. So there could be things that people recall that that could be something that's preserved.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And then I'll turn to Committee Member Garcia, and then I'll open this for the rest of us to react to what we've heard. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, everybody. I guess two elements that I really would like to see are the pole sign for sure. And I know we spoke about waterfalls. You know, the original waterfall being there. I don't know the current state of the building, and I only heard that it hasn't been well maintained. So with that being said, like, you know, elements of the footprint of the building, maybe some of the original integrated into a memorial, like meeting halfway. But I think it'd be really great also, and I don't even know if this is like an option, of really doing another, you know, survey for the community, the survivors, the parents, and really getting a better gauge on all the missing voices. Because not everybody, you know, likes to jump on Zoom and do all that stuff. But maybe, you know, getting more from the community and the Pulse community.
I appreciate you mentioning that. I think it's going to be important between now and our November meeting to take some of what we've talked about here and, you know, through Raphael and myself and others, speak with family members and survivors to get their additional input beyond what we've had now. So I appreciate you mentioning that. I want to ask a very quick question of Richard and Doug, if I might. I think it might be helpful if the two of you could just, it could even be a relatively quick answer, but you have on your poster the building itself and its dimensions. I was trying to approximate the difference in available space for any kind of new elements for the memorial if you keep the building as compared to it being demolished. When you said earlier the overall size with the 2 tracks, it was about 1 acre, I think is what you said. So how much of the space is consumed by just the Pulse building currently?
So an acre is 43,560 square feet. Pulse building footprint's about 4,200 square feet, so about 10% of the site.
Yeah, and obviously, it just because the building would be preserved doesn't mean it would have no role in the memorial, obviously. But I just wanted to understand the impact. I mean, visually, it obviously takes up a huge amount of the main property parcel, but then of course we have the remainder. Is there anything else that we should be aware of, either architecturally or otherwise, in terms of the potential preservation of the Pulse building that this committee should be thinking about?
In what respect?
I mean, I guess, you know, putting aside things like what it would take to demolish it, I mean, that's not what I'm thinking of, but are there besides just the space that would be taken up by the building, is anything else made more difficult if the building were to stay where it is in terms of the construction?
Well, just from a planning standpoint, you'd have to work around it. So your new features would be either encompassing it or around it, or I mean, it's up to the committee, but you certainly could do that. I mean, it's.
I think if you look at the quality of the exterior of the building today, that it is very degraded. Though I think one, you can, pieces of it has been stated. I think there's the ability to, as someone said, mark the footprint on the ground, mark certain areas on the ground. Everyone seems to feel the waterfall wall is important. I like that section of the building also because it's the tallest section of the building and it's got the round window above it. And maybe that water feature is not a quality water feature as it was designed and built, but I think there would be the ability potentially to rebuild that wall in a new way that puts in a professional high-grade water feature with it, can still maintain that shape, for example, keep the hole in the round window in the top, for example. I think those things can happen as well. And they start to, a wall or two will give you the sense of the space that the building was. So,
yeah, the building, as we know, has been changed over time. I mean, when you do research and go back, you can see that the part of this building was there in the 1930s. It shows up on some of the old insurance maps. But, from a preservation standpoint, you can preserve anything that you need to. It just has to be incorporated into the overall design.
Committee Member Byrd, I see your hand. Go ahead, Felicia.
A question for Doug and Richard. What would be the cost of preserving the building as compared to new construction and making a new memorial? I mean, granted, like several members have already said, you saving certain elements, but compared to just demolishing it, starting fresh and pulling those elements in as compared to working around, how would that affect the cost overall?
Well, that's a complicated question. Whenever you're preserving something, it can often cost more because you have to do a lot of work to that. It doesn't mean it isn't worth it, but preservation and rehabilitation are two different things. Preservation is really taking something and keeping it exactly the way it is today. So I don't know that would be the right, is getting very technical in the terms, but that's what a preservation technique would be. You keep it exactly as it is today. And that can be expensive. It also can save money because you're reusing what already exists. It's just not knowing. It's hard to give a realistic number because we don't know anything about the construction and how it's degraded or what have you, unless we're in there looking at it.
Right.
Yeah, and I would also add on, it's really hard to answer that question because we're still very early in the process. We don't know what we're replacing it with potentially. So we don't have that cost magnitude analysis of existing versus new. What's it going to cost to preserve existing and what is it going to cost to do new? We just don't have enough information for that yet.
And I would think something else that makes it complicated is the costs of preservation may be less on the design and construction side, but very significant on the maintenance and upkeep side in a way that new construction might have less.
I think in this building that would kind of wash out because this isn't, how do I put it? There's not a lot of elements of this building that are some very, old and fragile and difficult to reproduce element. I mean, there's no stained glass. There's no, it's not like it's an old cathedral that is being restored exactly as it was built
Right.
300 years ago. This is something that's relatively contemporary construction.
Right. I see Committee Member Dawson. Just before I get to her, when you hear folks describing, I mean, I think Doug already answered this, but when you hear folks describing the desire to preserve certain elements, whether it be a dance floor, fountain, do you have any significant concern with the viability or the feasibility of any of that?
No, you could preserve whatever you need to. You just have to know that going into it and protect it and preserve it.
Sure. Let's see, Committee Member Dawson and Committee Member Santiago Leon. Kelly?
Yes, you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
So that's why I was thinking possibly preserving some sort of, way of showing the footprint on the ground. If we keep the building, obviously it's gonna take up a lot of space that we would want available to us for the memorial. And that footprint could possibly be incorporated into the design as well. But then the space, the actual space, would be there for us to use.
Yeah, appreciate that perspective. Lolly, if you wanted to join in.
So with respect to, I do the footprint, and I'm so sorry, I had to step away, so I missed that part of the conversation. But with regards, in other words, kind of like leaving, kind of like how they have the Apollo mission, like you left the footprint at Space Center. Is that what you're referring to? Not necessarily the building itself, but like kind of like what is that? That was my question. What
Kelly, you want to?
And
Kelly,
I
do you want to elaborate?
apologize, I missed that.
No need to apologize. Kelly, you want to
I-
elaborate a little on the idea of preserving a footprint?
Yeah, like
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, somehow showing, like, if you were to look at the floor plan on a 2D drawing, you could see it on the ground. So you wouldn't have, the volume, the walls and the space above you. You would just see it on the ground, and then that space could be used for other things. So maybe you would understand where you were in the building, but some people would know, but some people would just relate to it as this is where the building is.
Okay, thank you. That's something that I appreciate you bringing that up, because I thought about that as well, and I was reminded by that with the like with Apollo, when you go out to the Cape.
Okay.
They left the site as is, but not completely, just what was there. But one concern I had, it's not a concern, or just from an emotional standpoint, certain elements, like the dance floor, may not bode well for some people versus others, and I know that's another discussion. And however that can be incorporated so that it kind of has both. It takes all of that into consideration, as far as when you look at family members who perhaps died there or were murdered. That's kind of for me and others that I've spoken with. They, that there's that element, the emotional aspect, but that's overall. And I don't mean to speak to. That's it. That's all I had to. Thank you for explaining that. By the way.
Yeah, Lolly, thanks for being brave enough to just ask questions when you're not certain of what a committee member is talking about. I want to ask the folks in the room and and also perhaps Senora Jimenez, obviously a number of folks are thinking that the building should be demolished, and you're hearing at least two committee members share some of their unease about that, reservations about that. What would you like for them to understand about your position of demolishing the building, and what could be a way to address some of what you heard their concerns about demolition to be? Tommy.
About a month or so after that night happened, the Pomas were actually nice and they let some Pulse employees go in to say like a last goodbye or whatever. Walking in that building, there is no energy. There's no positive energy, no negative energy. It's just empty. It's like a void. I believe that the bathroom wall should be preserved, but in terms of dance floor and other internal things in there, I don't, it might be therapeutic for some people. But I personally don't think preserving anything else other than the wall is worth it. It sucks the energy out of you like a black hole. It is such a void. So that's why I'm on the side of demolition entirely. But other than that one wall, which I know the wall is polarizing for some people it was a ray of hope, for others it's a horrid reminder. But I think for that polarization, that's why it should stay. Compared to the rest of the building, it doesn't have that sort of weight to it that the wall does. And regarding the dance floor, like I know I kind of mentioned it in past meetings, but I'm like, there should be it could be a little bit of a preservation, but the dance floor was literally just a concrete floor and it's stained, both physically and metaphorically. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my.
It's okay.
I feel there's a. Oh, okay. I feel there is a better way to keep the footprint of Pulse too. Like I feel like instead of keeping the building, we could have like a small scale model somewhere so people can see it, QR codes for how it looked on the inside throughout the years. I don't see the positive of keeping the building up.
Understood. Others want to comment? Go ahead, Ness.
So when I think about this, I think about it in sections, right? As they were presenting, right away my head is like parking. Maybe it's no cop thing in me, arranging for parking, making sure that people have room to leave their vehicles to come in. So I was very happy to hear about the extra property that would be there. Something like the wall that you're referring to, Tommy, was cut up and shut out, and however you want to look at it. Also happy to hear about the second building, because that can be preserved there. When I think about the dance floor and the number of moms that I have spoken to who think the dance floor is a place where their child's blood commingled with everyone else's and so on and so forth. Something I was trying to see is about, we talk about keeping a waterfall or improving a waterfall or making something a little bit more high tech. I don't know the condition of that dance floor. Is it a solid dance floor at this point? Because I know if I'm collecting evidence, I'm going to make mincemeat out of that floor. I'm pretty sure it's somewhat in that condition. So in taking down the building, I'm in favor of demolishing it. You preserve pieces. And if you can imagine encrusting it in a wall with the waterfall falling over, symbolically washing it, you can take and reframe that morbidity that comes with that. And you reframe it through that whole concept of washing away the blood or washing away the horror of it. So there's ways for those who want to keep that dance floor so desperately to have it there, but in another form, just morphing it into something else.
Yeah.
I think if we're thoughtful, I think we can come up with different things that will fit what survivors and parents may want to see or maybe not want to see.
Something that I think, thank you, Nancy, something that I think I'm hearing, and I'll turn to Marcelino next, across a lot of comments is we don't want to visit this memorial and have no sense of what was there. We want to have a sense of what was there. And it's just a question of the most meaningful and effective way to achieve that. But we don't want to feel as if we're just going to a generic place that could be anywhere USA. We want to feel like we're going to a place. I did not mean to take your thunder. You put your card down. Would you like to share?
No, I know
Go ahead.
voy a hablar en español porque sé que hay muchas de las madres que no hablan inglés y que no me entienden, y yo quiero que me entiendan lo que quiero decir. Estoy 100% de acuerdo con Araceli, que el edificio debe ser derrumbado completamente. Algo que revisé es si se conservara algo sería el letrero que dice PULSE, porque todo el mundo conoce lo que sucedió aquí en Orlando como PULSE. Mucha gente lo tiene en tatuajes. Yo voy todos los años al Cape, y en la comunidad ya en Cape Cod tiene una relación bien estrecha con la ciudad de Orlando, y siempre están pendientes a lo que pasa aquí. No creo que se deban preservar muchas de esas cosas que se está hablando, el piso, la pared. Hablando con Nancy ahorita, le mencioné algo y ella me recordó que hace 8 años que pasó. Nuestras madres han estado en este sube y baja por 8 años. Y yo sé que hay muchas buenas intenciones, estamos moviéndonos hacia terminar algo, un proyecto, pero esas heridas están abiertas de nuevo después de 8 años, y hay que terminar esto. Son 8 años más viejitas mis hermanas que conocí hace 8 años, y que de muchas de ellas he perdido contacto, pero es importante cerrar ciclos, poder descansar, poder hacer un memorial donde se celebre la vida y se recuerde lo que sucedió y que jamás debe volver a pasar. Mirando la nueva adición que hicieron allí y escuchando el pajarito. Gracias por mantener el sonido de lo que estaba pasando. El sitio ideal para hacer algo que tú puedas reflexionar, que puedas hacer algo y meditar, y sería en la parte de atrás del building, no en la parte del frente. Y la parte del frente, donde está ahora mismo el edificio, sería perfecto para el parking, porque está en el sitio más busy de la avenida. Eso es lo que yo quiero traer. Preservar a veces es caro, y dentro de la sociedad que vivimos ahora y como están las cosas de cara, $7 millones parece mucho, pero no es. Una persona que trabaja con budget, yo trabajo con las escuelas y con budget y todas esas cosas, 7 millones no es lo que nosotros estamos pensando.
Yeah, I agree that it can be easy to think that we have a lot of funds, and then we understand what things cost, and that can change. But Marcelino, thank you. Muchas gracias for those comments. Tommy, and then I'll check in with the group.
I just remembered what I was trying to add before in terms of full demolition. Prior to demolition, I do believe that victims' families and survivors are owed a walkthrough if they want before it fully goes away. I think it'd be therapeutic for some. It'll help, it'll hurt, but I think it'll show steps of moving forward towards a memorial finally happening. Because right now, the building itself, a lot of us it's a stain of what happened that night and what happened prior to this committee. And it's just a way to say goodbye fully.
I can see the therapeutic value for certain. And John reminded me, the mayor would like that to happen as well before any changes were made. Lolly, and then I'll bring it back to summarize. I'm sorry. Oh, Cesar. Okay, so let me get Lolly and then I'll come to Cesar. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that.
No.
Go ahead,
With
Lolly.
respect, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. With regards to visiting after the fact, I personally, as a family member of one of the murdered, I have not seen anything inside at all. Not even, but I have not as a way to say goodbye. So that kind of reframes, and I can understand why some people want to keep that the dance floor. I guess the point is, even prior to say what the suggestion is, like to visit, to bring peace. I mean, so what I'm saying is maybe others would, who I personally, I don't know if I can go inside, but I know that there are other family members that had expressed that, yet that was not brought up until I did not know, like what Tommy, like what you said. But this is hard. Sorry.
It's quite all right.
I think, and I like, I don't know, I can provide my opinions later so as to keep it short, but keeping the building represents, it's just, there's a bit of important, it's just to some of us, that's what we have. And that's how I see, like I see Dining and I see Jean and all of his friends, the memories that they held in there. And again, it may be, it contradicts with like what Tommy's saying, but again, I can't experience that. We all have our different opinions about it. But I just would like to, how can we address that? And I'm not sure what to say. And I'll keep
That's
it
okay.
short.
You don't have to be.
That's
Thanks.
it.
Thanks for
Sorry.
sharing that.
Yeah.
Let me go. That's okay. Cesar, and then I'll.
Thank you. I think we should remember that we are here for the family of the 49ers. I think they are the ones who has to decide what to do or not to do. Only the families of the 49 survivors can say whatever they want, and but the ones who has to decide is the families of the 49.
And have you in your conversations, sorry about the audio here, have you in your conversations heard any kinds of comments that you could share?
I've been talking with a lot of the families, and nobody wants to see the building because it hurts a lot. I mean, it hurts me every time I go to the site and I step on the front. Everything comes back. It's so traumatic every time we step in front of that building. But is the most important opinion is of the families of the 49. That's why we are here. That's why this community was created, and we are here for all of them.
I appreciate you reminding us of that, but more importantly, I'm so sorry about the trauma. You don't deserve to have to go through that. I'm sorry that it's so.
Yeah, the trauma is something that nobody is gonna take off of our minds. So it's really hard to live like that.
I understand. I see a couple of hands online. I know at one point Myra had her hand up, so let me check in with you and see, Myra, if you wanted to add something at this moment into the conversation.
Oh, hi. I just want to show you a picture that I have from one of the entries that we had when we had in the past designers that they were bringing what we wanted to see, what we wanted to choose for polls, you know, for the memorial. This is just a picture. Can you see it?
Let me see. Hold on.
Yes.
I'm gonna, if we can mute Lolly, if
Oh, I'm
mute,
so
the
sorry.
problem is when, that's okay. It's such a funny quirk of Zoom, but it shows just your screen. So let's see if we can. Hold on, Myra. For some reason, it's not getting us back there. Ah, it's the broadcast screen. Okay. Let's see. Let me do, yeah, I don't know. I can pin it on my side. PJ, I don't know if we can pin Myra just for a moment. I can see her. Yeah, sorry, Myra. We'll be with you in just a moment. I know it's hard to hold it up.
You just moved.
Let me, just for the moment, let me show my screen to the committee. So Myra, can you tell us what we're looking at? Ah, there she is. Okay, never mind. Tell us what
This is a picture of the actual building, but it was, you know, it was an entry from one of the contestants when we had in the past, you know, to choose from memorials and museum. But this picture, I don't know, I always liked because it has the date, the 6/12/2016 on the building, and it's surrounded by light and white. And, you know, if you can surround it by water, so it gives kind of like a hope. And, you know, like the heartbeat has been changed. So it's just an idea of how, you know, not necessarily, you know, preserving it, the building like it is, it just can be changed a little bit and it gives you a different perspective, but it remains there that it, you know, that pulse was there. Because I mean, I've been at the post during all these 8 years a lot. I've been encountering people that come to visit, and every time they ask, can we go inside? Why cannot we see inside? And I said, why would you want to go inside? You know, that's something sacred. I don't think nobody should step inside. But, you know, then they really referring to, you know, wanting to know what people escape, what people went through. And I think that's what I don't understand, but that's what they want to come and see. I know our purpose is different. You know, we want to see a memorial and we want it, you know, to honor our loved ones. And like I said, I have mixed feelings. I just, you know, when my thing is that if we demolish it completely, I mean, what is there to prove that something happened there? Just a memorial, just a park? Who then, you know, who's gonna come time after time just to sit in a park or you know, have something that will show us what happened there? So I agree with Josh what he said earlier, that it's important that before we make a decision, you know, for families that haven't been inside Spald, I have been inside the building. So to see it, maybe they will get a different perspective of things after they go inside. I know it's costly, it's maintenance, obviously. I'm aware of all that as well. And, you know, I do whatever is best for everybody. But I just think of for future generations, for people to know what happened there, what, you know, what it looks like, or I don't know, it's just my humble opinion.
I understand, and you're entitled. And Cesar earlier said we need to know what families think. You are a family, and your opinion matters. So I appreciate.
And families, they want. I'm sorry, and families, mothers, they have asked me many times that they wanted to go inside the building and see it inside as well before anything happens. So this is from mothers that they have asked me these questions, you know, as well, that they wanted to go inside and take a look.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Nancy was saying walk through and then. Right. Let me check in with Felicia's got her hand up online. Committee member Byrd, Ms. Byrd.
Yes, I agree with what Tommy said. As far as it leaves just that feeling of emptiness. Every time we go and visit Pulse, we come back home and we are wiped out, just emotionally, mentally. It takes us days to recuperate on every visit, and we're just walking around the building. As Myra said about people wanting to go inside, I cannot imagine walking in that building, seeing the bloodstains on the floor, seeing where our 49 angels lost their lives. I could not imagine walking in and seeing that. That's why I say the building needs to be demolished, because just walking around the outside of it wipes me out. It takes away from my healing process, because it reopens those wounds for me. We were in Orlando celebrating our son's graduation. He walked across a stage for his graduation that night and wanted to go dancing. And that was the end of his life. It was like the worst 24 hours of our life. I cannot imagine walking in that building. I really couldn't.
I so appreciate you sharing that with us. And it's impossible for me to imagine how painful it was to be celebrating in one moment and then grieving in the next. So I can't fathom that. It's unfathomable. But I really honor the fact that both you and Cesar and others are sharing so vulnerably about the way that this feels to you. It's really important both for the committee and for the community and for the future memorial. If I may, I think what I am taking away from this conversation is the building itself brings with it a lot of feelings, some of which are, how shall I say, some of which are very hurtful, some of which are very traumatizing, some of which are almost unbearably uncomfortable and painful. And then I've definitely heard a couple of sentiments that the building still holds meaning for some people. But I also think that this group is recognizing that it does not need to be an all or nothing proposition. It does not need to be either we keep the building exactly as is, or we take it away and no one ever knew it was there. It seems to me like this group wants people to have visual reminders of what was once there, without necessarily the effort that might be needed and the pain that might be caused by having the entire structure preserved. I think it's important, since we do have some committee members not here tonight, and since we're all consumed by some of what's going on and also want to check with families again, for us to not feel as if we have to make a final decision right here. But I think as we move into the conversation after dinner about elements, I would encourage you to think as if the building as if the space where the building sits now is available to you for consideration. And if we, as we talk about elements and as we think what the design professionals think that the building could have some benefit we haven't thought about, well, we can always, we're not demolishing it, ourselves. We can certainly come back to it. But I would encourage you to look at the property as it sits, as if you have space where the building is standing to add elements, because I've heard many of you say that preserving it would cause more harm than good. Committee Member Dawson, and then maybe Tommy, and then I want to take us to a brief break. Kelly?
Yes, a quick question, because I had mentioned, possibly showing the footprint on the ground. And is it, I understand not wanting to go inside. I understand not wanting to see it anymore. Is it even, seeing the footprint and walking on where, your loved one was, even if it's just on the ground, is that place somewhere that you don't want to be as well? I mean, does that need to be something special or something? I don't.
Yeah, I think
Just
that's I think it's a useful
know what I
question to
mean?
ask, and I see Lolly's hand up, so I want to honor Lolly, but I also would encourage us to maybe hold that thought a little bit, because the specifics of what ought to be preserved, I think we need to consider in tandem with what all elements we think belong at the memorial site. But Lolly, do you want to respond?
I'm going to hold off until after, but
Okay.
I will say that, yeah, it does hold different meanings. And why would somebody want to, really quick? One of the things is, for me, it's a sacred area. Yeah, don't get me wrong. This is not this, and I agree with others. This is very painful and traumatic. As a family member and honoring, my family as well as all of the others and everyone, I just think that there needs to be, how do I put it? Again, if we demolish everything, just keep that in mind. And I'm not saying that. We've lost what, in my opinion, we need to learn from things that are present. And I'm not saying everything, but I don't know, just kind of keep that in mind. And yeah. And thank you to everyone. This is for the community, and but it is also it is for my, like, on behalf of my family. It is it means a lot that
Thanks.
I just hope that we can all find a way that we're all together on this. But again, I will. That's it.
Thanks, Lolly. I think you may have had something you want.
Versus preservation it's been about 8 years now, and as far as I know, or as far as I know, the upkeep inside probably wasn't happening at all. So the structural integrity to me is already questionable. And then on top of that, you do have some other people that it's popular on TikTok, YouTube and everything, where they go into abandoned places and everything, and it's like, do we want to invite that risk if we preserve the building as well? Where it's like, yeah, we have a memorial here and everything, but how many people are going to try to jump the fence, so to speak, just to go inside?
TikTok and YouTube were not mentioned in the mission exercise, so I'm assuming that's not. Go ahead.
I think what everybody wants to see when they visit a memorial is to see life, to see angels, to see something different, no a place where it was a tragedy, and I mean, I cannot stand watching that building. Everybody of every one of us, what we wanted is to get out from there. As many of us, we wanted somebody to save us, or somebody to say that the exit is right there, and what we found is only windows blocked, doors blocked, and no exits, and nobody helping. So, I mean, I think it's able to preserve that building.
Well, I think returning to some of the thoughts about mission, you all want this to be a place for healing and a sanctuary. And so I hear in Cesar's comments some of what it will take for you to feel that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Well, I think we're at a good place with our conversation about this, and I want to help us have a further conversation about the specific elements that we've discussed. And so I'd like for us to pause for dinner, which is here. How long would you all like to have for a break to eat dinner? How long would you like? Is 20 minutes acceptable? I'm only wanting to be sensitive because we have people that aren't going to be eating, that are just waiting. Is 20 okay? So why don't we plan to resume at 6:45? So it's 20 minutes from now, so a quarter till the hour. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the elements that have been discussed over the first couple of meetings and hear what folks think about each of those elements. And we will still have public comment. It may be a little past 7:30, but we will, of course, still honor that. And we'll be back at 6:45. Thank you.
Ah, ay, carajo, me dio. Oh.
Yeah. Welcome back. Sorry that our dinner break was a little past 6:45 for those joining us virtually. I know you weren't dining with us, but thank you to the staff for a great meal, as always. A meal fit for a committee of 50, I think we all decided, but we enjoyed it very much. So I wanted to check in with the clerk's office, if I could, Stephanie and team. Do we still have just 3 folks signed up for public comment? And can you, I do see one of them named on the Zoom attendee list. Can you confirm whether or not the other 2 are there? I see one. Okay. Well, for those who haven't spoken during public comment before, you'll see in the chat on Zoom the link to sign up to speak. So I see there's someone raising a hand. We'll need to have folks go to the website that's listed there, www.orlando.gov/public comments. I wanted to note, we put an item on this month's agenda. It was on September's, of course. But Committee Member Connolly had mentioned to me the possibility of adjusting time limits. We've been using a 3-minute per speaker public comment time limit, and you had mentioned maybe 5. And so I thought that would be something for the committee to consider. Doesn't mean everybody's going to speak for 5, but just that perhaps they would be given that additional time. Do folks have any feelings about that, of allowing people to speak for up to 5 minutes instead of up to 3?
Depends on the number of people who want to speak. If you have a very large group, you stick to the 3. Else, if it's 2 or 3, like we're doing today, 5 is fair.
Okay.
I also say, like, I only suggested the 5 because some have voiced that 3 minutes too short for them. Some is like, what's another minute or 2?
So yeah, calibrated based on number of speakers total, and we do only have the 3 at the moment. Cesar, Marcelino, committee members on Zoom. Lali, did you want to add something?
Yes, I agree with extending the time. I just think that we should, or one of the suggestions that I'd like to give is that if it's the same topic, to just as other meetings, like have a representative, and yes, you can extend the time within that person speaking on behalf of, but that I think that would help probably navigate as far as time limits as well.
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
That's kind of like a wrap.
Yeah. Thank you for that suggestion. Yeah. So I'm not hearing any strenuous objections. I think with this small number of speakers, and I'm looking at Stephanie here for just a minute. Is there any issue with the committee allowing that extra time per speaker? There's not. So for those listening who want to speak tonight and haven't yet signed up, you could sign up and be entitled to a few additional minutes, as long as we don't have a huge number of speakers rushed to sign up. I think we still only have the one speaker that's already signed up that's online right now. Is that right? I was thinking about taking public comment now, but I think it wouldn't make sense if we're missing some of the folks who signed up. So to Dr. Blair and others, we'll come back to it, hopefully either half hour, 45 minutes, I'd say would be our goal. I also wanted to ask, I'm extremely mindful, as I'm sure everybody else is, of the need to prepare for the storm. And I wanted to ask if folks feel strongly about our finishing right at 8 o'clock. And I certainly would honor that if that were the case. I'm seeing nods. Okay. So we will plan to adjourn to finish at 8. We obviously have a lot to do generally, and a good bit we want to accomplish tonight specifically. So Raphael and I are going to sort of tag team to kind of keep things moving. And we'll plan to pause for public comment, like I said, around between 7:30 and 7:45 to make sure we have enough time to get all the speakers and also adjourn. So what I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to make life hard on PJ a little bit here. PJ, if we could go to the PowerPoint meeting PowerPoint presentation for me. Great, thanks so much. And then I just want to quickly review the elements that we are going to encompass tonight. And as you can see, the font is small, so I apologize for that. We just wanted to fit everything with translation. So I'll spare you the trip to the optometrist and read it. So we have landscaping and trees, water elements, noise reduction features, shade, parking, bathrooms, signage, lighting, art, and the original sign for the Pulse, I should say. We also have, excuse me, names, images, and text related to the victims, to the 49, names, images, and texts of survivors, historical information that could be about Pulse or about the incident, or both. And then these were a few other items that we picked up during the conversations in July and August. A private space for families and perhaps survivors as well. Some sort of container where families could leave keepsakes or mementos. Some sort of glass feature, and kind of in line with Kelly Dawson's thinking, an image that depicts how the club, how Pulse used to look. I'm sure that there may have been some other elements that you were thinking of, and so it does not have to be a totally comprehensive list. But what we're going to do is we're going to share with you a little bit of what the folks who took the online questionnaire had to say about these features, and then we're going to highlight a few where there seem to be more differing points of view. Is that fair? Okay. So PJ, I apologize. I'm going to have us pivot to my screen share once more so that I can show that to folks. So what we did was we asked for people to rank 1 through 5, how comfortable they were with a particular feature. So the first one was including shade trees and other landscaping at the memorial. And then it goes on from there. So when it comes to including shade trees and other landscaping, we had a high amount of support. You can see in the 4 to 5 range, average and median. When it came to water, we had a high number. When it came to noise reduction, a slightly lower number, but still fairly significant support and comfort with that. Parking had a fairly significant amount of support. When we got to shade, the number dips a little bit. I was trying to use yellow, but yellow washed out the font, so you got red. So the number, the average for built shade is a little bit lower than the other elements. Signage had a high amount of support and comfort. Lighting had a fairly high amount. And you get to original art, that number dipped a little bit lower. The original Pulse sign had a fairly high number. I apologize, I duplicated that question accidentally. Name, image, and text related to the victims had a high amount of support. Name, images, and text related to survivors was that got a little less. Historical information about Pulse and or the events of June 12th was high. Private space for families and survivors, high. Incorporation of keepsakes or mementos was high, relatively. And then the glass feature was low, but I suspect that that was because I was asking in an imprecise, very non-specific way. I think that probably on the discussion tonight, the support would probably be higher. There was also a little less support for incorporating an image depicting how Pulse used to look, but we also had the conversation earlier tonight from Kelly Dawson about something that represents the footprint of the building, and there seemed to be some interest in that as well. And those are all of the kind of the scores. And so as we discuss, I can pull up some additional comments made, but let me turn it over to Raphael to guide our discussion on this.
So Larry, let me check in with you, given that we're not going to run through past 8 o'clock. We have 5 that ranked a little bit lower. My suggestion might be to start with those and then go back and talk about as many of the others as we can get to in the time available. So,
is that okay with folks? Okay.
Okay, so for each of these, we'll start with the comments that were offered in the worksheet and then get additional perspectives. This is at this point somewhere between input and trying to reach a consensus. We'll come back to all of these when you have the design professional in the room, and the conversation may be a little more tangible at that point. So the first one I think you highlighted that had a slightly lower score was built shade. So if you want to go back and
yeah, thanks. We've got a few comments here. Notion of an ivy covered canopy. Maybe PJ, if we could get these back up next. Let me see if I can enlarge this a little bit. So an ivy covered canopy. Shading doesn't necessarily have to be built. It could be accomplished naturally. One person expressed really low comfort with this, saying anything that needs maintenance should be carefully budgeted and planned. Nice space to gather for remembrance. I would support something with this element. Don't have any specific thoughts. An overhang with a seating area is ideal for those who need to sit and also those who are there for longer periods, similar to an amphitheater. And that was all of the comments on this feature.
Okay, so let's start in the room and just what are your thoughts in addition to what we've already heard? Any reservations or any additional suggestions? And I'll just go around the room and then around the and touch base with each of the members online. And Nancy, if I could start with you, and
Sure.
Always you're free to pass if you.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of an overhang. Some of the family members are a little on the older side, so there should be seating to the overhang. And perhaps this seating, if we were to engrave or somehow memorialize on the wall, those who passed, the seating would be facing the names. You can go sit in front of your child's name, whatever group of names we put up. It gets brutally hot here as we experienced this summer. So it just seems natural and normal to have something for their comfort.
Okay, thank you. Cecil?
Fully ADA accessible. That takes everybody into consideration, able and people with progressive disability or getting to that age that Nancy was mentioning with the families. Also, trees should be preserved. I saw the pictures and the video. It's a lot of good trees that should be preserved right there. And we are like very popular about that here in the city of Orlando, saving trees.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just seems like people want more of a natural covering versus like a concrete covering. Like there's a bunch of trees and then the ivy. So natural covering, it makes the most sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it doesn't bring bugs.
Okay, natural
Someone sit
covering
there and get
that
bit.
does not bring bugs. Marcelino.
And every time we're talking about adding trees and all that, we're talking about maintenance and a lot of money. That's very expensive. So just
okay. Thank you. So I'm going to go down the list and I'll vary up the order as we move through these elements. But Aracelis, usted es la primera en la lista aquí. ¿Algún perspectivo acerca de esta posibilidad? Y puede no ofrecer comentario también, si prefiere dejar al próximo hablar. Está bien. No la veo, así que no sé si usted está tratando de comentar. Ok, volveremos a ver si tiene comentario. Por ahora, Felicia Bird, any thoughts on this?
I agree. They should have some type of canopy. And I also agree with having the trees because it does get hot in Florida. And when, I know if I come, when I come, I want to be able to sit for as long as I want, as well as in the shade.
Okay, thank you. Kelly. Any additional thoughts on this?
Yeah, shade would be great, natural or artificial, for the same purpose or reasons that everybody spoke of. If they wanted to sit, then they can be shaded.
Okay, thanks. Mayra? Oh, you're muted. You would unmute.
I love the sitting parts. I love the shades. I love the trees. I love the greenery. I don't like particularly the trees that are up there right now because it's been a constant chaos every time that we go there with so many leaves that fall from those trees. So it's always a lot of cleanup. And the type of trees that we have actually right now by facing the orange and the side of Esther, those trees are an issue. And but obviously I love trees, I love the greenery. Yes, we need the shades. It's very important here in Florida. And so far, yes, I'm agree with everything.
Okay, thank you. Joshua. Any additional thoughts on built shade features?
No, I really agree with everyone had to say here. So I'm gonna pass.
Okay, so
Lolly.
Lolly.
Yes, I am in agreement that we need, with what everyone has said, shade structure blended, and that it assists, we can sit. Yeah.
Okay. So a number of considerations. I'm sorry, Aracelis?
Sí, yo también estoy de acuerdo que haya sombra, que hayan árboles y se supone un área con árboles y con un banquito para que las personas se puedan sentar, lo que necesitan sentarse, sí, de acuerdo.
Okay, gracias. So it sounds like the reservations might have been simply around the fact that folks probably prefer natural shade and trees, but certainly the group is supportive of built features as well. Is that a fair summary? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Did I miss anyone? No? Okay. So the next category that received a slightly lower average score was original art. So Larry?
One second. PJ, if we could get the spreadsheet back up, the screen share. So Tommy said, I think have local artists, especially LGBTQIA plus artists would be so important. That's not yours. Sorry. Oh, I missed that. Okay, this is yours. I really don't want to see any artists trying to make a name for themselves by adding their art to the memorial, unless they're victims, families, or survivors. They really don't deserve a place at the memorial. Minimal amount of art by an LGBTQ artist changed out every 6 months. It is I'm not exactly sure what was my understanding that some artists already volunteered for this. One person said, I have some large and small art in my possession if needed, and quilts and small items. Artists should be utilized, perhaps out of the city structure, but leveraging public art is an option. I think having local artists, especially LGBTQIA plus artists, would be so important to showcase, work alongside them so their art interacts or coincides with our memorial design.
Okay. Thank you. So additional perspectives. This ranks a little lower. If there are reservations that the committee needs to understand, we'd like to hear those, but also additional thoughts on ways this could positively be incorporated if there are any additional perspectives. And I'll start with Marcelino this time.
Yo estoy aquí como perplejo, porque una de las cosas que nos hace grande aquí en el City Beautiful es los artistas que hay. Y si no me lo creen, vayan a Mill Street y vayan a todos los sitios, los murales. Hay un mural que no es tan famoso, que se encuentra localizado, creo que en un dealer de carros, que tienen un museo que es especialmente diseñado con la gente de PULSE. Y hay otra clase de artistas que pueden contribuir a la belleza. Puede ser mosaico, puede ser otra cosa que además de que ayuda a embellecer el sitio, mantiene vigente esa comunidad que es tan querida y tan necesaria aquí en la ciudad. Eso es lo único que yo quisiera decir.
Gracias. Gracias, Tommy.
Personally, I don't think any artist who was not even a patron or part of victims' families or a survivor from that night, I don't like. I'm already frustrated that some people think that survivors are trying to make a name for themselves regarding the memorial. I don't think adding a third party of an artist's artistry to the memorial makes it to me, it's a little bit give or take. It's like, so we could put another artist's, we could put an artist's art in it that not really a regular or anything, no real ties to the memorial, but we're gonna need survivors inclusion in the memorial. So I feel survivors deserve more of an addition to memorial versus an outside artist. I don't feel any outside artist would provide something that those closer to PULSE can't make.
Okay. And just to close the loop with some of the comments we heard, that would still apply if they were LGBTQIA plus and changed out every 6 months?
While I'm not mad at that, Savoy already kind of has that on their walls. And again, it to me, it kind of comes across as someone should make a name for themselves. Like, oh, my art was shown at the PULSE Memorial. Come see it here. It'll only be here for 6 months or something. I don't know if it's much of a, like, I don't think the memorial needs promotion like that.
Good, thank you. Nancy.
I rather like the idea of particular LGBTQ artists who perhaps have ties to PULSE, contributing. A lot of us were kind of stuck for how to express ourselves at the time. And whether it was in writing or was, you know, through writing plays and stuff like that. And artwork. I could think of one huge mural that was done and the artist couldn't get the city to use it. And not because I happen to be in that mural, but not because of that, but so many survivors, family members, and people who work very hard, you know, are in that mural, and it's now it's in New York. It traveled to New York, so you know, it's not he's making a name on it as much as it was a tribute to, and this is part of a world mural project. It's just an expression of respect and love for a community that he didn't belong to, but came here and lived here long enough to connect with. But he's gone now. In general, we have, as a community, we struggle to have our stuff seen. I mean, any artist will tell you it's a struggle to show their work or get recognized at all. It just seems something that would add to it, not take from it, you know?
Okay.
I just have a quick question. Are you talking about the mural that was part of the memorial wall on Esther's side? Like,
I think
or is it a different mural?
there was a mural that was put up the very first, at the year mark, I believe it was, or the second year mark. And it was huge, it's like,
Like at the
14
site
feet
itself?
tall. Yeah, and it was only there for like 3 days or something, or a day, and then it was moved to Lake Eola and then wherever it went. But my point still is that it really is something that adds, as long as the person's not asking you for money, the person did it from their heart,
Okay.
it's an opportunity
Just
for our people
different
to showcase,
perspectives.
I understand to aspects. My mindset is I don't know if you went when there was that mural on property around the corner. So like if you're facing Orange on Esther Street, there was that mural where it was like 4 or 5 wooden panels long. While it was beautiful, a large amount of people in that mural had nothing to do with Pulse. It was a lot of it was political stuff, a lot of it was promotional stuff. Some people had their own stories that they were selling. It felt very money hungry. Even if the artist wasn't getting it, it was promoting people who a lot of survivors and some families felt were taking advantage of the situation. So, I mean, if that's the mural you're talking about, that's my standing on that. If it's not that one, I'm not sure which mural you're talking about.
We can talk about
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me go, because we have limited time. I do want to make
Hey,
sure we.
I have the mirror, it's right
That's
here.
Yeah, I think it's important for
Yeah.
This is the mural.
Hold on, we'll come to you in a minute. You can show it then. Let me go to Cessa.
I think it's very important to have a specific area for the art. I guess it will be great on the fence that on the back side next to the clinic on the front side that is next to the OUC.
Okay.
So that will be it's a big concrete fence, so it can be used for art and all the rest is. I think it will be great for the memorial.
So let me go online. Maida, I would appreciate your patience. If you want to go next, and then we'll check in with everyone else online.
Oh, I just wanted to change show the mural that they were talking about. I don't know if you can see it.
We can.
That's
Do
the
you
mural.
have additional?
It's called Inspiration Orlando.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Do you have additional perspectives on whether or not to include original art? And you feel free to pass if you don't.
No, I just confused because we're talking about art, but where are we going to put this art? Where is going? Is it in a building? I don't know in respect to where this art is going to go that we're referring to. I love art. There were so many beautiful tokens of appreciation of arts that so many people brought over to the History Center that they have collected. And there's so many there, and they're so beautiful, and they have shown some of them in different remembrance occasions at the History Arts Center. So I love the arts, obviously, and when it's people that they have brought it over to us, that they felt the love and they feel the passion of bringing something and share something of their life with us, that has a lot of meaning. So I'm all for it, for the arts, obviously, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Aracelis, you looked like you were raising your hand. ¿Te quería
Sí.
comentar?
Sí, la estaba levantando porque yo creo que Si estamos hablando de un memorial, como que yo hallo que se está desvinculando. Cuando se habla que vamos a poner arte, que vamos a poner cosas que se vaya a pintar en un mural, como que estamos saliendo de lo que es real, lo que en verdad estamos buscando. Estamos hablando de un memorial de personas que fallecieron allí. No creo que sea para denotar que si yo soy hombre, que si soy mujer, que si yo bailo, que si no bailo. Como que yo creo como que se está yendo por otro lado. Ustedes me disculpan, pero eso es lo que yo estoy sintiendo ahora mismo. Que veo como que estamos yéndonos por otra vía, que no es lo que realmente estamos discutiendo de un memorial. Como le dije, yo acabo de visitar, pero no se sabe cuántos memoriales ahora el mes pasado. Y nada de eso que estamos tratando ahora mismo lo pude ver. Ahí lloramos muchísimo en uno, que hay 2.500 con forma de estatua allá en Berlín, en Alemania. Ahí la mayoría de las personas que fuimos 40 personas cristianas, lloramos mucho. Lloramos personas que nunca las conocíamos, porque fueron de los 600 judíos que murieron. Y te digo que realmente veo como que se está yendo por otro lado, porque si vamos a poner todo lo que queremos poner, excusen, entonces no va a ser un memorial, creo yo, y disculpen.
Gracias, Aracelis. Le agradecemos su perspectiva. Otros que quieran comentar, others who would like to offer additional perspectives, and as always, feel free to pass. Joshua, any additional perspective you'd like to share with the committee?
Yeah, well, anyone that knows me knows that art is like a huge part of my healing. So taking that out of the equation, I think if there were to be art part of the installation of the memorial itself, it would have to be local artists for sure, and would be great to help LGBTQIA plus artists. But another thing is, using the art to also talk about the different cultures that were impacted. I know that was a lot of what we talked about in the very beginning of having a very large Puerto Rican community that was impacted as well, so just looking at all the different cultures, and maybe that's where the art plays into the memorial piece.
Okay, thank you. Lali?
Yes, I agree with the placement of art. I think art is it is healing, and it's a huge component for me personally, and I think it does have a space. It could be, collective locally. I think to put and I'm not saying I think it should be local LGBTQ. But also those Pulse was also for the community. So I think community artists as well that are not necessarily of all, I think all cultures. I think that's kind of what this is about. We're stronger together, and we need to kind of. It would be nice to rally behind that, even with artists, and I agree with Araceli, is that we're going in a different direction. Like, we need to. I don't know. I think that we get. I had people. The art helped me, and the images, because I was not present for all of those. I was, and it's also documentation, and but a rotating and as far as for space, landscape art or outsider art is something that could be looked at as well, in terms of that can go everywhere, but and a lot of and just one more comment. Some of the artists or photographers, they did that out of their hearts, just to kind of it was not a promotion for some. And I mean, and I'm not saying that, I just wanted to clarify that some of the work that has been present was done either you know, they took pictures, they did photography, but they asked for permission by, so, you know, and they don't look for, I can tell you many who do not look for you know, I don't know how to say it, but we do have the city has an art court, you know, Pat Green, that would be somebody to also kind of speak with regards to this.
Okay, I believe Larry has a question for clarification.
Well, I was just going to ask, Lely, I think said local, you talked about local artists and community, and I just wanted to make sure I understood the distinction.
Well, they're kind of, kind of like what, you know, what was said, what Nancy said, or, I mean, there were various people who throughout the world. So when I say community, the idea is that we can bring this all, it would be so nice if we could all, you know, be part of the world came together. And if there are people that, you know, they presented things, I know that's an argument for another day, or, you know, we could take it offline or whatnot. But yeah, I say local because there were many that were local, and there are others whose murals were not, you know, they were not part of it, and they are touring or they're worldwide, but they weren't, many whom I've met did this out of, yeah, sorry.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Kelly, I believe you haven't spoken to this yet. Any additional thoughts? Nope. Okay, and Felicia?
I'm the only,
I'm
I'm the only one. I think I'm the only one left. I believe though too that the memorial will be art in and of itself.
Yes.
And if there was something permanent, it would definitely have to be agreed upon if it were a mural or something like that. But I still also kind of like the idea of art that is kind of a you know, that you change out, and that would have to be agreed upon as well when it's displayed and the artists that get displayed. That's just, you know, it's kind of a blanket, you know, agreeing with a lot of different things, but the memorial will be a piece of art in and of itself.
Okay, thank you. Felicia, did we hear from you?
No, you haven't. And I really don't have a whole lot to say on this subject, except that I think some type of art should be shown or be displayed. And I don't know, we just need to figure out how we would select the artists that would display have the opportunity to display. And I don't think it should be for no type of monetary or recognition as far as trying to make themselves known.
Okay. Thank you all. Did I miss anyone? Nope. Okay, in the interest of time, names next.
Yeah, the survivors, I think,
Survivors
would be,
names. There was
yeah.
high agreement on having the victims' names incorporated in some way. The survivors' names, and we'll hear the comments first, and then we'll just open it up to additional perspectives rather than going around to make sure we have time to get to public comment.
You can see on the screen, one person said survivors deserve acknowledgement as much as the 49 victims. One person said survivors should have a smaller plaque or area. Survivors tree with a plaque and a digital feature is described where if they chose to, they could tell their story for visitors to hear. Perhaps pavers in the amount of survivors with, if they chose to, their names inscribed. Neutral, go with the group. I understand this is a polarizing conversation for the families of survivors. I believe that absent the survivors walk, we must at minimum include a list of the survivors. If we have the ability to revisit the survivors walk as initially planned, I think that's the most fitting option. Having the families participate with the name engraving or have them be at the site where the name is installed would be an important touch. And that's it.
Okay, so those comments all seem to tend in one direction. acknowledgement of some sort. What are there additional perspectives? Is there something else you would like the committee to consider? Those comments really, I mean, they have a couple of specific suggestions, but I think the thrust of them is acknowledgement. Would anyone like to offer first in the room and then we'll go online? Additional perspective or detail?
I have a question because what I heard there was already an investment for the survivors wall. And I'm not sure if the city knows something about this. They got any information.
There was supposed to be like a rainbow crosswalk from Pulse.
Yeah.
to
No, but
the
I
hospital.
think they already got money to build it, to do it.
But that was part of the onePULSE Foundation, and that money's gone, and the walk never happened.
Okay, we can request additional clarification, but I don't have any information on that. And Larry, I don't.
No,
Because I think the survivors will be still is a good idea, and instead of being, including in the memorial.
Okay, okay. Online, additional perspectives, otras perspectivas o opiniones o comentarios acerca de esta posibilidad de este tipo de elemento para el memorial. ¿Algún otro comentario o alguna otra perspectiva? Okay, so again, I apologize for going. Oh, I'm sorry, Aracelis. And
Sí, sí. Sí, yo quiero comentar que no recuerdo bien si fue en Israel, pero yo en un sitio vi que había unas pantallas donde se estaba los nombres, donde se explicaba qué sucedió en ese lugar. Yo creo que una pantalla podría ser. Esa es una humilde opinión. No sé cómo ustedes lo verán. Gracias.
Ok, gracias. Lali? You're
Right.
muted.
Yep.
Oh,
I strongly agree the survivors should be included as far if they choose to, of course.
Yeah.
I think that's
I see heads
important.
nodding around the room. Okay, thanks. Tommy was next, then Myra, and then pardon? Okay, Myra, he's deferring to you, and I apologize. I have to ask for brief comments at this point. Myra.
No, ya iba a contestar en español. I agree as well with the survivors as long as they agree to be part of it. I love the idea still of the survivors walk as well. Like it was meant to be from the beginning, but I mean they're part of it. They're, obviously we have to give them a priority as well. We
Okay,
have
thank
to
you.
honor them, and like the first responders, everybody that was involved. Yes.
Gracias. Thanks, Tommy.
No, I was just gonna add, like, acknowledgement is a necessity. Holocaust museums, they have the tribute to those who were lost during the Holocaust, but they also have a survivor registry. We can do something similar where even if some survivors who choose, they may want to give Cliff Note version of their relation, the pulse, or what happened that night. Obviously, by if they want to or not. But I'm sure there are some survivors now that have either moved past it, don't want to deal with it, or they're going to take part. But I don't think they should lose that option in the future if they all of a sudden it's like, you know what, I was there. I want to know that I wasn't forgotten.
Thank you.
Para mí, la cuestión de los sobrevivientes sería otros 20 pesos. Sería aparte de lo que estamos haciendo ahora, porque muchas de las personas pueden o no acceder a que se le mencione, acceder a que se dé información acerca de ellos. Estaría quitando parte de lo que estamos haciendo aquí del trabajo y podría atrasar muchas cosas, porque entonces sí que se se hace polarización de lo que está sucediendo. Puede ser que sea un trabajo que se haga aparte, un trabajo que se haga un survey entre las personas que se autodenominan como sobrevivientes, porque no sé quiénes son, no se sabe quiénes son, a ciencia cierta solamente los que han hecho, claro, sí, yo quiero ser nombrado.
Gracias. ¿Alguien más? Anyone else want to speak to this? Okay, thank you. I think we'll skip over the glass feature that was very vague in the questionnaire. And my sense is that as far as image goes, you've actually spoken a fair amount about that today in your discussion of the building. Larry, you want to read those comments and we'll just see quickly if there's anything else?
Yeah, there really isn't a whole lot of commentary. A couple of people said they don't think this is an important feature at all. Go with the group, perhaps in a digital kiosk, perhaps a scale model with QR codes showing virtual recreations of Pulse interiors over the years.
So we will come back to all of these elements with the design assistants in the room, and you'll have an opportunity to explore how these might look and how some of the perspectives and reservations you've expressed may be reflected. And there are probably a number of ways to do that for each element we've talked about and the ones we haven't talked about. So we will come back to that. Lali, I apologize, a brief comment? Your hand is still up.
Is there an opportunity to, if we did not complete or had issues trying to fill out the form, are we able to contribute more information?
100%. And
Yes.
I'll correspond with you offline just to make sure there's whatever issue you had before. I know you weren't the only one. So.
Just some points that I agreed that, I don't want to take up time, and I think it would be.
No, absolutely. And that's a great way. If people felt they didn't get to make all their points, you can go back through and make them there. So like I said, if anybody has issues completing it, I'll follow up with you individually.
Thank you.
But thanks to my colleague for facilitating that important discussion. It is 17 minutes before 8. So let me check in with the clerk's office on our public comment.
All right, so the first public speaker we have for this evening is going to be Zachary Blair. Zachary, if you can please unmute your device.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, all right. So you opened up with OPD's investigation into the unpermitted renovations and code violations at Paul's. And I just wanted to say for public record that this was not a legitimate investigation. They did not interview the Pomas, they did not inspect the building, or really did anything. So their conclusion's illegitimate. That investigation was just a shabby analysis of our own 4-year-old report. Despite these investigative deficiencies, the OPD's report confirmed that Pulse was operating illegally as a nightclub and did not obtain the proper conditional use permits. You talked about a lot about the conditional use permits tonight. And this is something that the Office of the Mayor has denied repeatedly for years and has lied to the public on the record. Just look at what they told the Orlando Sentinel at the 5-year mark. We are also actively questioning the OPD's legal basis for their decision, as even school children prepare for mass shootings. Mass shootings are part of our daily life and have been for quite some time. Furthermore, nightclubs in the state of Florida are required to be gun-free zones because gun violence is expected at nightclubs. This is why Pulse was required to have armed security at the front door. They did not. Furthermore, since this was a business, which is required to follow building and zoning codes, we also question whether or not the chain of liability was actually broken, as OPD suggests in their report, and if the case law that they presented is even relevant to the issues that we presented. So today, we also got confirmation from the city that Pulse was only supposed to be a 1-story building and that the property appraiser's records were wrong. So what about the upstairs offices that survivors are trapped in for 30 minutes as they listen to their friends get killed below? These unpermitted offices were also part of the 2016 property appraisal, and one of the reasons why it was appraised for over $2 million when the city was going to purchase it the first time. So we have the city now confirming that the second floor was unpermitted, the $2 million property appraisal was fictitious, and the city paid the Pomas more than the property was worth. It's unreal. The failures across the board are astounding. There's a clear pattern of negligence and lies if you look at what has unfolded over time. So the OPD's report is not a closed door for criminal prosecution. If you think that an investigation is some form of closure, to quote Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, you have another thing coming. This is also why we continue to call for an independent third-party investigation and inspection before the building is demolished. There is also still an ongoing civil premise liability lawsuit, and we're going to continue to expose the city for corruption going on in the office of the mayor. For instance, this Esther property that was purchased by Craig Matier through a transaction set up by the City Attorney Mayanne Downs. Well, Craig Matier is the sister of Jody Litchford, the Assistant City Attorney. So what is that? Why is the office of the mayor setting up property deals between the city and family members? When is the city purchasing the Esther property and for how much? It's as though the city has no concept of conflict of interest. So that's for the public record. That's not really for the committee, but for the committee, I wanted to say that this memorial should not be about the building. It should be about the 49 victims. I've said this before. And the 49 victims are enough. And I agree with Araceli's, Marcelino, and Miss Burt, and wanted to amplify their voices. And I know many of the survivors and families agree. And I think this is the majority sentiment. You know, it's not about the building, it's about the people. And this is reflected in your own documentation that Larry showed earlier today too. Are you going to include the name of the victim whose family did not want his name in the onePULSE Foundation's memorial? The city included his name in the memorial in Fern Creek Road, but onePULSE admitted it from the list of the 49 victims. You haven't even mentioned this at all in the conversation, but like, has anyone reached out to his family? Are you gonna like override? Are you gonna follow onePULSE's route? You know, what are you gonna do with this person's name? Are you gonna include it or not? You know, I think that's a conversation that you all need to have. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. I also wanted to let the committee know that I put in a public records request for the statutes that said you could invite the 8 families onto the committee. I don't know if you remember that from the first committee, but I think you all should ask for clarity because I couldn't find anything in those statutes that said you weren't allowed to bring those 8 families on and vote on it. I didn't see anything in those statutes. I agree with Tommy and Araceli's regarding not using the Pulse Memorial as a rotating art gallery. Savoy, the library, and multiple other venues already do that. And what about each family member's favorite photo of the victims, you know, the 49 victims? You know, this is something that the onePULSE Memorial lacked and was criticized for because it had photos of the city of Orlando and random people and had no photos of the people who were killed. So why about that? Like, why are we talking about art? And then the city got 50K, because you guys didn't have this information. The city got 50K from onePULSE for the Survivors Walk, which I also think was a great idea. And there's a contract.
Dr. Blair, if you can finish your thought, you're at time, so just finish your thought.
Sure. So the contract was for $250,000. And Raphael, I think you're doing great. You should be running the whole thing. Thank you.
I don't mean to laugh, but let's not quite. We need to make sure we get to the other speakers. Clerk's office.
Next up, we have Joshua Hernandez Carrion. Joshua, if you can raise your hand if you are here. Joshua Hernandez Carrion. Does not seem that Joshua is here, so I will be calling the next speaker. The next speaker will be Anita Bush. Anita, I do believe I see your hand up.
Yes, hi. There's a couple different things I have to say, and it'll be quick. Joshua, Myra, and Cesar said something that was very important here. And that a lot of this should be determined by the families. And I'm wondering, has any survey been sent out to the families so they can have their privacy in their voting about the building and other things? Also, how many of the 49 victims are represented? How many of the 49 are actually represented here? Last meeting, Mr. Rigas, Ms. Santiago Leon, and Mr. Schooler, there was a something at the end of that meeting, and I'm giving you the opportunity right now to apologize if you would like to on some misinformation that was set forth. If not, I will set the record straight myself.
Am I able to speak?
This is, yeah, this is Ms. Bush's opportunity to speak. Please go ahead.
Oh,
To set the
okay.
record straight, as you emphasize the importance of honesty at the beginning of this meeting. Victims first, there was information about victims first stated in the last meeting that was untruthful. We do not take a penny from victims. We are not lawyers. We do not take any fees whatsoever. We're not involved in any lawsuits. We are here, we give 100% over directly to victims. And I think that needs to be addressed, and I would like the record from the last meeting to be expunged, because you are not only harming me personally, which I will leave all my options open on that because it also attacked me personally, but also our network of families across the United States. So I think that needs to be addressed and apologized for and expunged from the last minutes of the meeting and the video. But going back to the initial, and you can address that later. But again, I think it's very important to find out right now if a survey has been sent out, and if any, and how many of the 49 families have contributed to this process, because this should be led by the 49.
Ms. Bush, for the comments, I will ask Lally to hold off on any kind of response for the moment. I want to make sure we get to other signed up speakers, and public comment is primarily for the commenters. Clerk's office, who else do we have?
The next speaker is going to be Christine Leononen.
How was that?
Christine, if you're there.
Christine, if you can please unmute your mic. You have 5 minutes to speak.
Hi. Oh, great. First of all, I'd like to reiterate that I want to be on that committee, and my son was killed at onePULSE. Do you guys understand that? Do you hear me?
We do hear you. It's your time to speak.
Okay, good. So I should have been vetted. I'm an honorable person, and I legitimately would have represented not only my son honorably, but all the 49 victims honorably. Now, it's come to my attention that you have at least 2 members of your committee who are not honorable. Now, we have a thing in the law that's called the fruit of the poisonous tree. Now, if any of the fruit of a tree is poison, the entire tree is poisonous. Now, you have a couple of poisonous fruit in your committee. This is a public committee.
Ms. Lennon, I'm gonna step in. I'm gonna step in for a moment, because as I said at the beginning of the meeting, the discussion agreements apply both to the committee and to the public comment.
Schuler.
And
You are
so
not going to step
before
in
you
because
continue,
one of these committee members,
before you
Dr.
continue with your
Schuler, one of
comments,
these
I'm
committee
going to ask
members
that
was
you not.
making a point today about what her
Ms.
opinion
Lennon,
was.
I'm gonna be very explicit here and say that
Look,
it is
she was
important
making
not.
a point today of what her opinion was.
Ms. Lennon, and it
Now,
is possible to
have
make your
proof.
point without labeling anybody poison. So I'd ask you to
Look,
withhold any kind of personal
when
attacks.
Look, she is on the committee. You guys did not vet her. And there was another member of your committee who you did not properly vet. Now, she made opinions about what she believed this memorial should be. Now, when she worked with Barbara Poma hand in hand and the onePULSE Foundation, she was collecting personal property of the 49 victims. And they were making all the plans, and I have the proof, that they were making all the plans to go across the country with these personal property of the 49 victims at a traveling exhibit for profit. Now that's what she was going to do. And now she's on a committee to honor my son? No. You have the fruit of the poisonous tree. You have another committee member who also worked with Barbara Poma and onePULSE, who has a criminal history, a substantial criminal history of fraudulent crimes. Now, if someone has a propensity for fraud and worked with a criminal nonprofit, fraudulent nonprofit, onePULSE, and now they are proposing things in your committee having to do with a public memorial for my son, again, no thanks. Now you had someone like me who you could have had on that committee, who was honorable, who was law-abiding, who has an entire life history of law-abiding, honorable behavior with raising my son. My son had a history, 32-year history of law-abiding behavior. We could have been an asset to the memorial, to a public memorial, but instead you chose to not vet committee members. Now you have, this is what you have. So you have people who are making opinions, who are going to tell you that they want to have, you know, art, whatever, they want to have first responders added to the wall and whatever they want. They want all this additional memorial ideas, whatever they want done with the building, and they don't have a history of being honorable. They need to be off that committee. In fact, you need to wipe the committee clean and start fresh, and start with people who we can trust, who have honorable motives, who have never exploited their kids, who have never teamed up with the dissolved
That's time,
fraudulent
Christine. Thank you for your
nonprofit.
comments. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I just want to state the obvious, which is that this committee has agreed to conduct itself with respect for one another. And we have asked that members of the public who comment to you all act with respect and avoid the kind of direct personal attacks that were just leveled. I thought that was deeply unfortunate. And I hope that the members of the committee understand that there was a thorough process through which your applications to this committee were, as Ms. Leinen put it, vetted. There were 4 members of the Orlando community who reviewed the applications without names attached. There were multiple other members of the city staff who looked at the applications. So lest there be any confusion about the process and the way it was conducted, each of the applications received, what was it, 150, were very thoroughly reviewed and vetted. But I appreciate that there may be members of the public who are in pain. That does not need to lead to the kind of direct personal attacks that I was hearing in those last comments. So I'm sorry that that happened. Let me, I know Tommy wanted to make a quick point about the family that.
Just in reference to what Zachary Blair said, because to me, I wasn't sure if we were going to mention it. There is committee member, based on what they've told me, they are not here today, so I'm not going to name them. But from what I was told back when onePULSE Foundation happened, I was told that 49th family didn't want their son's name part of it due to the LGBTQ. But they still took their money and they left. I don't know how much of that is true at this point now, because at the time I was trusting onePULSE Foundation, but that's what I was told by someone on this committee from the onePULSE Foundation. I hope it's not the negative that I was told then. And if they do want his name involved, I hope it is. That's it.
Clerk's office, I'm sorry, I didn't check to see if we were finished with our speakers. We are, okay. PJ, if I could get the PowerPoint just for a moment, I just want to recap where we are in the process. Thank you very much. Might have to ask you to advance it. We, as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, due to the circumstances of Hurricane Milton, we've decided to cancel tomorrow night's meeting, and we hope that everyone will take every necessary precaution for yourself, for your families, for your loved ones, your property, to be safe. As I also mentioned, Raphael and I will be reaching out to families and survivors between now and then to get their input, as several of you have suggested happen. There has been an opportunity for the families to give the kind of anonymous input that was suggested that's on the site, but we will continue to update that site to make sure that it reflects your most current comments. So you'll see some updates there. But we also are going to make direct calls because we're aware that some people embrace those kinds of anonymous online opportunities and others would prefer to speak on the phone in English or Spanish. And again, we will be working on some design concepts that integrate these elements together during, that should say, your November meeting. This was written initially in September when we thought the hurricane season would not affect our schedule. PJ, one last slide, just showing our dates. Again, there is no meeting tomorrow evening because of the storm. We're scheduled to meet next on Wednesday, November 20th and Thursday, November 21st. And then we have meetings also scheduled Wednesday, December 11th and Thursday, December 12th. Raphael had something, I think.
The only thing I would add to the next steps, the next meeting, the next couple of meetings are really consensus seeking. And part of what you are doing is hearing the variety of opinions and perspectives you have amongst yourselves. As you engage with the various possible elements of a memorial at the next meeting with the designer, it'll be useful for you to have those perspectives to refer to, probably in writing. We had hoped to be able to get you a compilation of those comments today, and it was a very tight turnaround after the last meeting and other things also happened. But we would, I think, like to get the results of those worksheets and the additional input that comes in between now and the next meeting to you, with enough time for you to think about it and think about how you might
Hello. I can hear you.
in advance of the next meeting. Just look at that and think about how to include all perspectives to the degree possible.
And just so everyone understands, I think Raphael and I share a sense of consensus, if I can put it that way, that it doesn't have to mean everyone feels exactly the same way. It's not unanimity. It means that we've arrived at a place where everyone feels they can support a pathway forward, or that they're willing to let it move forward without their opposition. So we know how many perspectives there are on this and other topics. And so consensus is that's the way that we think of consensus as he was describing it.
Very much. Yeah.
I just, again, want to, as someone who has, I'm sure, like you, lived through hurricanes, just stress how much and how fervently I hope you all will be okay, and how grateful I am to you personally for taking the time, whether in person or virtually, to do this important work. And I also want to pay special attention to committee members who allowed themselves to share their feelings so vulnerably. That is a very honorable thing, to pardon the phrase, but that's a very meaningful thing to do, and it shows how deeply invested you are in this work. So unless there's anything else that we need to mention, my thanks to Donna, my colleague at the city, thanks to Raphael and all of the city staff who helped us, and most importantly to the committee. Thank you all very much. See you in November.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Be safe.
Orlando, please be safe.
Question.